I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Victor Genova. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I'm doing very well. Angel, how are you doing
I'm
in
excellent.
Trinidad in your shorts
Yeah.
and enjoying that heat?
I'm pretty excellent, my friend. So it's Trinidad and Tobago, just to give the sister island a hail out there. I'm in the
I
Trinidad.
apologize.
No, you're good. I usually make the mistake as well because I live in Trinidad specifically. So you're correct. What part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
You are featuring podcasters, and I'm a fellow podcaster like yourself. I'm the founder, I'm the host, I'm the one-man show that is the Media People Podcast.
Oh, there we go. Tell us more about the podcast, please, Victor.
It's lively, insightful chats about people who power the media industry. The way I got the idea was to go way back. It was kind of a late passion of mine. I discovered radio and that I really had a thing for it at the tail end of my university career. This was going back to about 2005. At the same time, podcasting started to pick up as a self-made medium. People could do it on their own. And I knew for years that I wanted to do something, but I didn't have a theme in mind. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to start a podcast." You have to know what you want to talk about, and you got to be passionate about it because you got to stick with it. And then my day job is a media sales rep, so I shake people down for money. That sounds poorly. What I do is I actually sell media space, but that's essentially what we do is we chase people for money, big brands at agencies. If anyone listening has ever watched the show Mad Men, I'm the guy chasing the people at the Mad Men agencies, trying to convince them to buy with the companies that I represent or the websites that I represent. And what happened was I was out for lunch with some clients, and we had some younger entry level people there, and they kept grilling me on my career path. And I said, well, when I did your job, and they said, what do you mean you did our job? I go, well, everyone has to start in the trenches at some time. And they're just like, well, stop. Well, how did you get out of that entry level position? They kind of felt like senior people kind of fell into those positions. They hadn't progressed up the ladder system. So I started telling them, and I realized, okay, there's an appetite for this. People want to know this. And I still had the podcast idea in my head, but this kind of solidified it. And from there, I said, you know what, it's going to be one-on-one chats with people from the media industry. And we started in March of 2015. I haven't done nearly as many episodes as you have, sir, but we're going on to recording episode 26. We usually do about 7 to 10 episodes per year.
Yeah. You're doing a great job. Like, I got to listen to the conversation with Michelle Lewis. I think it was really intriguing to have a real life example of how I rose through the media world. It was pretty amazing. Love it.
Yeah, a lot of people think that they have to go from job, and sometimes that's kind of the dead end you have, where you have to go from job to job to get that promotion. But no, Michelle rose up through the ranks, and that's why we say in there from the front desk to the corner office to becoming the editor in chief, starting off as receptionist and then becoming the editor in chief of Cottage Life magazine.
Yeah, and I think duly noted, no degree, right? Like, she didn't have a communications degree, right? That was pretty fascinating as well, right? Just the fact that her experience in the cottage industry, in the cottage area, right? Just being that person who seems to have lived in that zone. It's pretty fascinating, right? That was the thing needed, and she became everything else. I'm guessing there was a lot of work she needed to learn as well, right? But I love the fact that you're sharing that on your podcast. Well done.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Tell me, my friend, why you will continue to repeat this skill.
Oh, geez, because it's so much fun. That's why I do it. I mean, you cannot plan for success, and I got into this spending some of my own money, not very much of it, thankfully, because I wanted to have fun. I don't sell advertising. I don't have the audience to even monetize it, but I don't care. I don't care because I'm having fun. I'm learning about people. I'm bettering myself, my technical skills. I found that doing podcasts has made me a better listener. It's helped me understand people a lot better. It's made me a better speaker overall. So it's made me a better person. And give you an example of what I say to some people, because they can't understand why you go to all this trouble and for your passion. And they don't see it as a passion. They see the work behind it, the money spent, everything that you have to do. And ice hockey is a really big sport in my country. And the National Hockey League is the pinnacle of ice hockey. globally. Arguably, they make the most money, those players, anywhere. And a lot of my friends play hockey, and I'm 35 right now. A lot of them are in their mid to late 30s. And I say to them, why do you continue to play ice hockey? And they're like, well, it's fun. I go, but why? You're not going to go to the NHL. That boat passed you 15, 16, 17 years ago. Why spend all that money on hockey? And hockey is not a cheap sport. And then it starts to click with them that, okay, this is fun for him. He's enjoying it. It's kind of on the same level as playing sports for other people.
Yeah. You know, one of the advantages I have right now with those that I host on the program is that in between all types of experiences, all different types of ages, and I get to hear individuals that have lived their life and reached a point and say, I'm glad I did this. And I get to hear individuals that are at the beginning of their journey, and they get to say, I'm doing this and I'm passionate about it. I'm not sure how it's going to turn around to money, but it's really fascinating to be in the middle, to be able to say, you are a victor by doing what you're doing, because you will get to the end of your journey or midway, and you'll be the guy that's saying, hey, I'm so glad I did that.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add too that something might look difficult on paper, and podcasting isn't easy, but if you take the time to learn the craft, as you know, it's absolutely not as difficult as most people think. It's something that is easy to learn and easy to manage if you're patient.
Yeah, so for those out there, start your podcast.
Start them now.
Start it now. Well, tell me, Victor, one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years.
I've managed to stay employed, so that's one thing. But something else I do on the side is I volunteer with something called the Advertising Club of Toronto. And what the ad club does is it's kind of a giant social group where what they do, it's a not-for-profit where they put on various social events for the advertising agency, and they take that money and they reinvest it back into a charity called the National Advertising Benevolent Society that is a charity for the media world. I sit on a committee called Digital Day, and what we do every May or June is we put together a huge conference that brings together some of the best and brightest minds, case studies in the digital media world, and it's put on for, I want to say, a fair chunk of the Toronto media world. I have the privilege to co-chair that this year. In the past 2 years, I've served on the committee, so it's something that I've been doing consistently for the last 3 years on the side.
How does that make you feel?
It feels fantastic. I mean, anytime if anyone's ever had the opportunity to do anything like put on a conference, hell, even plan a wedding, those things can be very physically and mentally draining until the actual day comes and it takes shape. And you get the feedback from everyone, and you see everything that you had planned come to life. It makes you feel very good about what you've done, and it puts all of that hard work into perspective.
That's great. Suggest to someone out there that's listening why they should do what you've done, specifically by jumping out and doing the thing that drives your passion.
I chose to do it because you could do it. And I mean, going back to podcasting, why I decided to do it, it's not something that could have been done 30 years ago. We are in a very democratized media state where even going back to little things like a weblog or a blog, those little things where you can tell your stories, it used to be quite exclusive, the media. Again, going back 20 or 30 years, if you wanted to write a book, or if you wanted to be a journalist, or if you wanted to tell a story through video or even be on the radio, you had to work very hard, and there were very few positions out there. But now, putting money aside, and I know money is always a factor, you can go out and do it on your own. You can, if you've got the will to learn and you've got an idea that you can really hang your hat on.
Amazing audience, you're hearing it live here from Victor Genova. Again, he is the podcast host of Media People Podcast. Do check that out. Is there anywhere else you'd like people to connect with you, Victor?
If they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just search for Victor Genova, VictorGenova. But if you go to soundcloud.com/Media People Podcast, you'll see at time of recording all 25 episodes that we've got live right now.
Love it. Victor, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Victor, what is your earliest childhood memory?
I'd have to say it was my baby brother being born. And that question really put a test to me. Because you think you remember a lot about your childhood, but when you're forced to reflect on it, you don't. And I'd say, yeah, the birth of my brother was probably the oldest memory I have.
How old do you think you were? Well, you must have known how old you were now, right?
Well, I know exactly. I was 3 years old, and I remember I know because one, we're 3 years apart. Not only are we 3 years apart, but my brother and I are 3 years and 2 days apart. So I kind of remember my birthday sort of not being that big of a deal because my mother was already going into the hospital to get ready to have him.
How do you see that memory affecting or connecting to who you are today?
Oh, I think it's a great thing. I mean, it really, best way to put it to you is it kind of changes you as a child because you're sort of the center of attention. But I'm looking back on this and I don't really remember time as being an only child, but it gives you someone to interact with at your own age, at your own level. And I think that helps you grow socially a lot quicker.
Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Go for it.
One word. Maturity.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. Maturity isn't a word people associate with me much, but I will admit it probably did help me grow up a little bit.
Yeah, hey, you're doing a great job, my friend. You're on the non-profit side. You're helping individuals. You've produced a podcast now to help other individuals. My friend, you are definitely the mature guy in this right now.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. If we fast forward to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
It was a song called The Bazaar by a Canadian rock band called The Tea Party. It was on their album The Edges of Twilight. And I remember it was one of the first CDs I got because I was playing, literally, I was from that generation where when we discovered music, it was all on cassettes. And then all of a sudden CDs came along, or they became a little bit more mainstream. And you had to convince your parents that you were still going to listen to your cassettes, but you had to buy CDs now for a CD player. So that was it's still one of my favorite songs.
I love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Victor, are you ready?
All right, go for it.
Victor, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Okay, yes, but not someone specifically. I'm just kind of sharing them as people inquire.
Are you married?
Happily.
Do you have children?
I do not.
Do you believe in God?
It's complicated, an answer?
It's yours.
It's a little bit complicated. I think that's a separate podcast altogether. If there is a God, I want to interview him for my podcast because I've got some questions for him or her.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No, unless it's something on Netflix that's binge watch worthy. Then all of a sudden, yes. But otherwise, if there's not something on there, then no, maybe 1 hour, if even that, per day.
What about screen time? The phone and the computer, is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh man, in my business, it's combined. It's going to be over 8 hours between the phone and the computer.
Victor, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who Victor Genova is, what would you say that is?
I'd like to think I could say the word authentic, and it's something that I know that a lot of people throw around, but I am who I am. You kind of like take it or leave it. I'm not a bad guy. I don't do bad things or anything like that. I'm a bit quirky, but it is who I am. But I did want to say there are two statements that they're not really my statements, but they're statements that people passed on to me through my jobs. And the first one is, if you don't ask for it, the answer is always no. I swear by that. And that you're the only one in charge of your career. Regardless of what happens to you, you're the only one in charge, and you make the decisions to move forward.
You get to be the victor.
That's right.
Victor Genova, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you, my friend, for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Angel, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.